I've been seeing a lot of comments from you guys lately telling me about how Zillow, our beloved home search app that can do no wrong, is somehow manipulating the market. And it's shocking, and I should check it out. So I did. I looked it up, and I did find a person's video that's very shocking. Thumbnail and title is very scary. Watched the video, and this is my reaction, okay? It's like when you find out Nutella was unhealthy for you. We all kind of knew, you know, it's like this tastes way too good for it to actually be healthy like they're claiming to. And then once it came out, it was like, we kind of knew that, but it kind of sucks knowing that, right? It tasted so good and we were kind of hoping it would be healthy, but you know, yeah, we all kind of knew that. Is Zillow manipulating the market? Well, yes and no, but here's my problem with it. It's like, it's being portrayed as this new shocking discovery, but I have been raving about this problem now for years. And let me tell you, Zillow may be the biggest and the shiniest person doing it now, but this problem goes back to years ago. And it doesn't start with Zillow. It starts with other companies that have started this trend. But more importantly, before the companies, it started off with a certain group of people that maybe some old school fans know what I'm talking about. Cool. So the market has been pretty good. Pretty good to everybody this last decade. If it's been good to the folks that like needed down payment assistance and really didn't have a lot of money, can you imagine how good it was for people with money? Right? People always talk about how, you know, all these investors are ruining this market now, but they've been on the prowl for the past decade and they've been making a lot of money. The first group of investors that started not necessarily taking advantage, but made some money off the growing market was the fix and flippers. You know, you might have heard of them. They're all over HGTV now. Maybe you had the goals and aspirations to become one. Essentially, they would buy a property below market value. They would buy it, you know, make it look nice and pretty and sell it for a profit. Take those profits, move on to another house, and the trend keeps going and going. So this fix and flipping really caused a, I'm gonna say phrase, trend? No. A craze, if you will, of people who wanted to enter the fix and flip market. Everybody wanted to become a fix and flipper. So you didn't really need a lot of money to get started. You could use, you know, some kind of capital funds or even hard money loans. And as long as you had the willpower and you made the right moves, you can make some decent money. And at that time, there was a demand for it. There were so many properties. Not every one of them was remodeled. So whenever the right remodel would come up, it would actually sell for a lot above market value and you would make some good money. So with this new trend brought more opportunities. The first time I started hearing about this in my career, you know, all these young whippersnappers in the mid 2010s that would, you know, say and claim they're making all kinds of money with this new way of making money. And then I would get emails all the time from, you know, people saying, hey, new deal, right? Well, these people are called wholesalers. Essentially, for those that don't know, broken down brass tacks, wholesalers were the ones that find opportunities out in the market. They would find somebody who needed to sell their house to somebody cash, nice and quick. And many times the homeowners did not know what the intention or what they were going to do with the house. They just knew there was a cash buyer. So these wholesalers would try their best to find these properties really cheap by either finding distressed properties or maybe just, you know, they knew somebody, et cetera, et cetera. And what they would do is, let's say they would buy a property for 150. They would buy it for 150, market value was like maybe 200, right? So normally a fix and flipper, this would be like, awesome, let's put 10, 20 grand on it. Let's see if we can sell it for 210, 220, make some good profit. Wholesalers became the middlemen. They were out there seeking the opportunities while the fix and flippers were doing the hard work of flipping houses and whatnot and, you know, maybe being involved in their flips. And now since there was such a craze of fix and flippers and people wanting to do this, they would take advantage of that. So let's say if homeowner was down on their luck and they needed to sell their house really quick to somebody, a wholesaler would buy for, let's say, you know, 250, okay? Well, that house is actually worth about 300, but let's say they bought it for 250. And now wholesaler is going to say, hey, fix and flippers or other investors or people, you guys want to buy this house? I'll sell it to you for 270. You can make 30,000 on this, right? So then they would sell it to a fix and flipper, third person in the party, for 270. Now the fix and flipper, if you continue the trend, would have to put money into it, and it still would be the same amount of money. That like the labor or the material doesn't change in price. They would still have to put the same amount of money. And now let's say they put 20,000 in. Well, they're at 290 now, right? And they need to make some profit, so they can't just list it at 300 anymore. So they're forced to list it for 320 or 330 or 340. So they're forced to raise the prices even higher. Who gets to pay the price? Well, the home buyer, because the fix and flipper will sell it to the home buyer, and now the home buyer gets to pay $340. And the wholesaler got their 30K, the fix and flipper got their money, and the homeowner got to pay the higher price. Does this sound ridiculous? Well, it's been happening for a long time now. It's literally the worst, right? And of course, they have the money to do that, and it's a capitalist society, so whatever, go ham. So if you bought a house like between 2015 and 2020, you might remember these nice investment properties that are like really in pristine condition, just being really expensive. Let's say you're looking at that point in time, maybe 200s, right? And there was one for 230 and it was like in really good shape. And you would go look at it and you'd be like, this is really pretty, but this is just so expensive. I don't know who would pay this much for it. I don't think I'm looking at houses for 210 that are just as nice, but this has like really, really nice countertops. So I don't think I want to make an offer on this. Well, you would see it, keep an eye on it. It would stay on the market for a month or two, maybe even 3 months, but eventually it would sell. And maybe they reduce the price just slightly, but it would sell around 230. So what was the market effect of this, right? Like I said, everybody made their money, but now that house is a new comparable of the area. And even though other houses in the area may not be as nice, still they're going to use that house as a comp now. So therefore, the values have gone up. I've always said that wholesalers are one of the first problems that we've had with this inflated housing, because if everything that happened with COVID was like the fire that ignited everything, wholesalers were just pouring gas all over the freaking market, soaking in kerosene, gas, all kinds of things, just preparing for it to just really explode. First, I want to show you guys probably the most heinous, is that the right word? Most disturbing one I've seen. And it happened right in front of a family member's house. There was always this older couple that lived there. And yeah, they were not the friendliest. I actually sold the house next door to them once, and they came to me. They're like, hey, make sure to bring some good people into the neighborhood. I was like, what do you mean by good people, sir? He was like, well, Anyways, one day we just noticed that the older man just wasn't around anymore. We assumed the worst, and of course, the worst did happen. Next thing we know, we see a bunch of people showing up in, suits and whatnot, and then we see a few months later, a for sale sign, and then we see another for sale sign with a different company. So what happened is she probably needed the money to either go retire or to simply pay for funeral expenses or whatever. So she did what she thought was the best thing to do. Probably called one of those, we'll buy your house cash. A lot of people, homeowners always think, well, my house needs a lot of work, so I need someone cash to buy it. So she probably did that. Called somebody she trusted and said, hey, we'll give you $133 for it. And she took it. This person, the same day, that same company switched it over to another company. So what happened? They wholesaled the deal. So during escrow, while they were in the process of purchasing it from this old lady, they sold it to another company for $160. So this old lady could have probably sold the house for $160 directly to another company. But the middleman got involved, saw an opportunity, and took basically $27,000 away from the old lady. Once again, oh, Javier, we're in a capitalist society, man. Trying to make money. Yeah, I get it. Still kind of a shitty situation. Even if she would have got $150. Then step in to the fold. Our first companies to start doing it on a larger scale. Open door and offer pad. Okay. So what these companies did is what Uber did to taxis. Taxis, you do the hard work of going, hey, over here. Then you got to go into a cab and it smells a little weird. You go and go to town and you always feel like you pay a little too much. Like, okay, whatever, it is what it is. It got me to point A, point B, right? Uber came along and made things really simple with the phone. If that car was a little smelly, you can report it, and you're just literally, it's getting better, right? So it's like a more efficient way of doing things. Well, essentially what OfferPad and Open Door did is they came in and they said, hey, we like this wholesaling deal. We're going to make it better. And when they first came on the scene, they started going on, radio, and then started advertising them all over the places. And they started advertising to homeowners, hey, you can choose when you want us to move out. Get a cash offer at market value. You choose if you want 90 days, you want 30 days, 45 days, you close when you want. You're giving the control back to you. And to get an offer from them was really simple. You went to their website or their app and you filled out their form and they gave you this nice, pretty offer. It's like, ooh, this is nice. You would get under contract and it turns out that they had huge fees, and then they take a lot of the money off from the top because they had all the Benzers repairs that they need to do. And next thing you know, the house that you thought you were selling for $330 sold for about $315, $310. But even though it says you sold it for $330, don't get it fooled. Don't get it twisted. All they did is they made the wholesaling situation a lot easier. How? Well, think about this. We have a homeowner who's in need, right? Either because they were marketed towards, or maybe they're just in a bind and need to sell somewhere in cash. Comes a company that gives them cash and says, hey, we'll buy you that. And then they will buy it cash, and it ends up being a lot cheaper. And then that company, what they do is they put it for a lot higher for sale for a homeowner. And I know this because I'm one of those suckers that fell for it. The second house that I sold, and I can say this because this is my personal situation, I sold to Open Door. I was in a bind and I needed to sell to a cash buyer. I didn't have the patience. I had just bought my new home and I was like, well, I have to I need this money now, you know? And I think I had a buyer, but then they backed out like last week, the week before closing. So I was in a bind. What was I gonna do, you know? So at the time, I think the last time I bought the house was for $202. I had it under contract for $230 and it fell through. Sad. But they came and they offered me $221,000 cash. Well, not too bad, right? Well, at the time, it seemed like it was a good deal, but they charge fees from the top. But even though on public record says they sold for $221, after fees and repairs and everything, I really made like $207, $210, right? So on their books, they actually bought it for $210. These guys were the first people to do it. They would buy these properties and they would put it on the market. They would paint them. Sometimes they would paint them. I would say not every time. Sometimes they remodel them. But most of the time, they buy them, they clean them up a little bit, and they put them on the market for a lot higher. And a lot of times, they would put them, $40,000, $50,000 more. And they had the patience to wait months for it to finally sell because they had so many inventory at one point at one given time that they had the ability to wait. Here's an example for you guys. Beautiful house for sale currently, was purchased by them for $421,900, listed for sale for $440. But remember, folks, I actually found this Reddit post here that describes the fees they charge. They charge this person 6%. They charge them $1,700 closing costs and about $7,500 of repairs. So over 10%, but let's just be fair and say average would be maybe about 7 or 8%. So for this specific house, if it was closer to 8%, then they made a pretty good profit margin. All it is glorified wholesaling. And once again, who pays the price? Home buyers. Open Door made it very simple so you can go look at a house without an agent, go check it out. Well, yeah, but they just bought the house a month ago from someone $40,000 less. And you're like, hey, price is a little expensive, but it's not bad. Let's go for it, right? And you buy it with them, and they just made a huge chunk of money, and you just paid a lot more than it did. Enter Zillow. Okay, OfferPad and Open Door are doing this at a high level. I think right before the pandemic started, they were everywhere. And Zillow started up, I believe, in 2019, 2020 is when you started seeing a huge presence. They actually started working with these big real estate teams to start essentially doing what's called Zillow Homes, right? So, which is so funny about Zillow, it's kind of ironic. You guys think they're like the super accurate form of, showing houses to you, and they definitely have a very easy to use user interface, and they're probably one of the best to do it. But what's primarily funded them for the past, decade or however long they've been around have been real estate agents. Real estate agents work out deals with them to, before back then it used to be like you used to pay, thousands of dollars a month to have a zip code, and your name and number would pop up next to the zip code if somebody was looking for a house in that zip code. They eventually transitioned into a model where they don't have that no more. But if you say, hey, I want to look at this house or tour this house, well, then they would give it to one of their agents that pays them thousands of dollars. Well, now they've slowly transitioned to being their own brokerage where they have their own agents and their own mega army of people ready to show houses. So what's funny to me is that we essentially funded our demise. The agents used to pay them thousands and thousands of dollars and literally built the business of being a Zillow agent, or essentially paying them thousands of dollars for leads because they couldn't produce their own. And now they're using all those millions of dollars they got from real estate to not only buy properties, which I'm sure they're using VC funding for that too. They're a public traded company, but they're buying properties, but they're also opening up brokerages and to basically put us out of business. So we funded our own demise. Anyways, so Zillow started getting into this purchasing property thing, probably like I said, a year or 2 years ago. And when I first noticed they were doing it, I thought it was a done deal, because already most sellers, when they want a homeowner evaluation, where do they go? They go get a Zestimate, right? And that used to be a goldmine for realtors, because then that would become a seller lead for realtors. But now this has become their way of trying to get an offer to you. Right now, I challenge you, go look up a house or a random house or your house on Zillow that's not for sale, like your parents' house or whatever. And it's going to say, get an offer from Zillow somewhere on some big blue, nice big button, right? We're going to click more here and click Move-In Ready Homes by Zillow. We can go to the price index history. They bought this house for $367. Selling it for $440, about 19.7%. The only difference between Zillow and Open Door, in my opinion, is they're not hiding it, right? They're buying it at the cheap price. They're not trying to hide it behind like the fees and whatnot. Let me pick out another area for you guys so you guys can see what's up. 510, not bad, not bad. Let's look at the price and tax history. Zoinks, 18.2%. How could you? Just to kind of end it on a positive note. Maybe there's an exception out there. Maybe it's not all bad. Bought for 317, so for 390 for 23.2% increase. Zoinks. Yes, they're simply following the same template that's been left behind by wholesalers, by OfferPad, by Opendoor, by all those companies. So it's not nothing new. They've been doing this for a while. And the worst part about it is when they do put a house on the market, they are willing to wait. And there's such a shortage of demand of houses right now that people are already offering $40,000, $50,000 above the price. So if there is a house for sale in that area, they not only, they used to be able to just wait a few months for it to sell, but now there's such a huge demand that people go for these houses and they might even offer them even more than what they're asking for. Therefore, Zillow getting more and more money from these houses. So is it this mass manipulation at a huge scale? I wouldn't call it manipulation. Like I said earlier, I would call it greed, but it is something that's been done forever by wholesalers. How it stops? Well, listen, I understand there might be homeowners out there that might be in a pinch and they might want to sell it cash to somebody. I get it. There's always going to be those people that are in that situation. Almost every single time that you were thinking about selling your house and you decide to sell it to a cash buyer like Zillow, OfferPad, Opendoor, or whatever, you're essentially getting the next buyer to pay a lot more for that house than they should have. But don't think that's money that you're getting. That's essentially you giving money to a company so that they can make money off the next buyer. That's really it. So to slow this trend, we really need to make sure homeowners are on the same wavelength as us. Hey, try not to sell to one of these big giant companies. I mean, maybe I get it if you're in a pinch or something, but right now this market's so crazy, you're going to probably get a cash offer anyways, right? But really, well, my goal right now, this sounds super crazy and it's super dumb and I know it'll never happen, but if I can get a homeowner to simply think, you know what, let's say they put their house on the market and they go, man, these cash offers are great, but this home buyer here, the offer isn't as big, it's still competitive. I think I'm going to go with the home buyer. Yes, it's not as easy, but this is going to help another family out, right? As opposed to selling it to one of those big companies or selling it to a company that's going to be renting it out, et cetera, et cetera. So the truth is, yes, it's happening, but it's been happening. And we are allowing it to happen by purchasing these houses at these high prices and also allowing it to happen by selling our houses to these companies for simply convenience. Once again, easier said than done. I'm a hypocrite because I sold that house 3 years ago to a situation, but learn from my mistakes. If I had been more patient, maybe even freaking borrowed some money using credit cards to just live off credit for another month or two, I could have probably found a good buyer to pay me more for my house. Or I could have rented it out and, hold on to it for a little longer. There's less convenient routes to take, but they will, take some blood, sweat, and tears. Sounds brutal, but it's the truth. So what do you guys think? Am I onto something here? Is there something mass manipulation happening at a market level that I'm not seeing or something? Or is it just simply greed? If you have any questions, you can leave them below. You can also continue the conversation on our Discord channel. If you need an agent referral, have a great agent program below. Click the link in the description. Other than that, thank you guys so much. Make sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.